music gets better every single time. Hope you're well. Stus Numbers. Tonight we are having a look at the lookups, vertical lookups, which is something that if you are familiar with spreadsheets and spreadsheet use at work, it's almost a mystical thing that people that work with large data sets or large lists tend to use quite a lot, and those that don't use it or aren't sure how to use it can often feel that it's beyond them and too complicated. Let's show you some very simple VLOOKUP work this evening, and more importantly, not just what its application is, but actually how it can be used. So I've got into Google Drive as before. This is our dummy sheet from our earlier videos. Not very exciting data. This is just some random data, remember, which was generated off the internet. So here's a list. Let's pretend it's got 10,000 names in it, and if I scroll down, I can see Lillian Michael has Equatorial Guinea as a country associated by a Bearbury, whatever that means, as a city, and the date that's recorded. Again, it doesn't matter what these mean. These are just random bits of data, but 10th of July 2014. So what we want to do is have a formulaic way of plucking that information from this long list. Again, think about this list as being 10, 20,000. So it's easy for us to scan down a list of 20 names, but imagine it's an enormous list. We want a formulaic way of pulling out that information. So my second sheet, I have dropped in Lillian Michael's names. Let's just get rid of those other ones. Let's focus on this one. And what we are looking to do, I shall just zoom this fella up. What we're looking to do is actually say, look, can you very quickly tell me what country is associated with Lillian Michael? So we use this thing called vertical lookup. This is a column-based lookup. It's going to look down the name column and then give us a piece of information that is in a subsequent column to the column that we look up. So think about the logic here. We want to look up Lillian Michael's column, the name column. Remember, I've zoomed in here, guys. That's why you can't see it. We want to look up the name column. Okay. I want to find Lillian Michael. What's her name? Here we are. You see I've got screen freeze on here. Let's just get rid of that. I'm moving that there. So here we are. We'll do it manually. I want to find Lillian Michael. I want to move one column to the right, and I want to return a result that tells me it's Equatorial Guinea. So formulaically, we're looking for the formula VLOOKUP, which is VLOOKUP, VLOOKUP, open bracket. It's looking for 4 pieces of information. The first piece of information is the search key. What am I searching for in my data set? Now, I could type in Lillian Michael in text, obviously in quotation marks. However, I'm very simply just going to click on A5. You see that? Alternatively, I could write in A5, and that shows me, highlights cell A5. Perfect. Search key, Lillian Michael. I want to look up Lillian Michael in that column. I'm comma. It's asking me what range do I want to look it up in. Now remember what we're looking for here, guys. I want to look up Lillian Michael in that column A. I'm clicking on the data tab. Now you'll see it's still highlighted in the middle, my formula entry here, as well as in the formula bar towards the top of the sheet. So again, relatively friendly interface. It can go a little bit quirky if you jump around too quickly, as I showed you before. So I do want you to be patient with Google Sheets. It's very powerful, as I've said before, and there's no reason it can't replace your use of Excel if that's what you so choose. Anyway, it's asked for a range. So to start off with, I'm just going to click column A as my range. So you'll see it's brought up the tab name, which is data, or the sheet name, data, and that's always followed by an exclamation mark. That tells it's a sheet or a tab, and then it's asking for the columns. Now, just out of interest, it often might suffix and prefix the tab name with an apostrophe. It will do that if there is a space in the tab name. Now, because data doesn't actually have a space in it, there's no apostrophes around the tab name. There's my range, comma. Perfect. It tells me I'm looking for an index. Now, I'm not entirely sure. Maybe I can't remember what index means. Maybe I've watched this Stus Numbers video and got totally lost. So if I look down here, it explains what index means. The column index of the value to be returned, where the first column in range is numbered 1. So in fact, if I jump back to my range, I've just input column A. In fact, I want to highlight column A and B because the piece of data I'm looking for is in column B. So I'm just going to jump back to range. See, I clicked on that. I'm going to delete A, and I'm actually going to overwrite it with B. It doesn't need to be capitals. It will understand what's going on. So range A to B, my index, what did it mean? I've forgotten. The column index of the value to be returned where the first column in range is numbered 1. Good. So my name column is 1. I'm looking for the country. That's in column 2. And finally, this confusing one, which basically says is sorted. In case where the column to be searched is sorted, in which case the closest match for the search key will be returned. In essence, let's cut to the crux here. If you have a list which has a numerical sort in column 1, maybe it might be you know, size of paint pots. It could be lengths. It could be dates. If it was an ordered list and you asked for a lookup against a number that wasn't in that list, it would interpolate and it would give you a result, a close estimation. I've found very little use for the true you know, non-exact vlookup, and that's after using it for about 15 years. So I'm actually going to ignore it. Let's stick to the false option. False basically means I'm looking for a unique entry and a unique result. So I definitely want to look up my value in cell A5, and if you can't find it, you're going to return me an error. So we are going to input false. Close brackets, enter. There we go. Equatorial Guinea. Beautiful. Okay, so let's pretend it wasn't Lillian Michael we were looking up. Let's say it was Lillian Michelle or Michaela. You know, you'll see there's the other one. It doesn't matter what it is. I wanted to show you the error popping up. Now, one thing that Google Sheets, another thing that Google Sheets is terrific at is actually showing you what the problem is with the error. Let me hover over this, okay? Hover over the cell. Error, did not find value. Lillian Michaela, whatever it is, in VLOOKUP evaluation. Beautiful. I know what the problem is. So I'm just going to undo it. Control Z. There's my column width. Control Z. Goes back to the correct name. Lillian Michael, Equatorial Guinea. Perfect. Now I'm now going to populate it with the city and the date as well. Let me jump back to my data set. Very straightforward. Cities in column C or 3. Dates in column 4. So let's jump back. We are going to not autofill this. You see, autofill in Google Sheets is pretty straightforward, same as Excel. But if I autofill it, you'll see my references move across to the right. So my column A search moves to column B. My data range A to B moves B to C, etc., etc. So in fact, what I'm going to do is, for simplicity, I'm just going to copy the text from the formula bar. If I avoid printing it, copy text, and I'm just going to drop that as a paste there and a paste there. So I've now got an identical formula in all 4 cells. Beautiful, nice bit of tidying up. Here we go. I said the city was in column 3, so I'm going to input a 3 here. This should work perfectly. Reference. What's happened here? What's happened? Okay. I'm using my VLOOKUP. I'm looking for the 3rd column. VLOOKUP evaluates to an out-of-bounds range. Look what I've done, guys. Data A to B. I need to include column C as well. So I could change that column reference or the range A to B. But in fact, I know I need column D as well. Come on, none of this is rocket science. So I'm going to change the range A to D. I'm going to highlight that formula, press enter. I'm going to copy it there. I know my city was the 3rd one. I now want my date to be delivered as the 4th column. Perfect. A little bit of tidying up as ever as you go along. Why not? Here we are. I've looked up Lillian Michaels' country, city and date using 3 very straightforward VLOOKUPs. Now, jump back to data. Let's pull another name that we know is in the list. Okay, I'm just going to look up Dustin Shannon's information. So what about this, guys? What about if I wanted to restrict selections in this? So, you know, instead of writing Bob Jones or something, some random name, what about if I wanted to restrict the user to actually selecting or inputting names that were in that list? I can actually use something called data validation. Data validation says limit what gets input into that cell, and I'm going to go cell A5, that's the cell that we are working with. Criteria, list from a range. I'm going to click on that open box, and see, I'm just going to click back into the data sheet, and I'm going to highlight the range that I'm looking for. Now, as I do that, this is where Excel and Google Sheets differ ever so slightly. Look, it's allowing me to wander around this sheet whilst I'm off the validation window. I need to click back in the criteria box and then click back onto the sheet, and watch. When I do that, it gives me a minimized window, or certainly a smaller window, and I'm going to highlight my names. Very straightforward. Again, maybe this wouldn't necessarily highlight them all, but we'll give it a crack anyway. Okay, now on invalid data, do I want to show a warning or reject the input? So because I'm looking for distinct entries and there are no other options, I am actually going to reject an invalid input. There are many scenarios where an invalid input would be relevant. So for example, if you were looking to complete some information that could have new people added to a list, or could have new entries, actually allowing invalid data or names that aren't on that list actually has quite a lot of application. However, we shall reject it for the purpose of this demonstration. We're going to go save. If I jump back to Stu Sheet, it will give me the familiar drop down, and now I can very simply, look at this, very easily select my names. And actually, if I start typing in the cell, it's a really nice bit of setup on Google Sheets. Really nice bit of design from Google Sheets. It's showing me the options in the sheet, and that's on a free search as well. So if I go YES or YE, oh actually no, it's not. It's what if I put that in? No, maybe not. Okay, here we go. There's our Lillian Michael again. We've got our 3 bits of data. We've effectively used VLOOKUP, pulling from a different tab to deliver 3 pieces of data, and we've used data validation to limit what gets input into this cell. You are up and running with VLOOKUP. Tomorrow or next video we'll have a look at HLOOKUP and show you what that means. Equally as useful and equally as powerful. Guys, this has been Stus Numbers. We're covering some real basics here on Google Sheets. Much of it's applicable in Excel as well. Whatever the case and whatever you're doing in Google Sheets and Google Drive, I hope it's as much use to you as it is to me. Send me your questions and comments. Any feedback, of course. I know some of this content is dry, but this stuff is absolutely bread and butter in the business environment, I promise you. And to get a real grasp of not just how to do it, but how to be confident in it is invaluable. So best of luck. Let me know how you get on. That's all from Stu Numbers. I will catch you soon.